Hey everybody, this is our last book of the week, The Invisible Boy by Trudy Ludwig and illustrated by Patrice Barton. I read this last year toward the end of the year, but it's definitely on the playlist for this year. As you can see, I have my sticky notes. When I read books, I like to mark up my thinking in them, and I encourage kiddos, if you're ever reading a book, particularly a great big picture book like this, just mark up some ideas, things that remind you of other books you read. I tend to do that a lot. Let's take a look at the colors. It's drawing on the ground. But it's called The Invisible Boy. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. Now wait a minute. He's fully colored in here, but he's not colored in here. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice too much. Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. Now that's an interesting term, taking up a lot of space. Is it physical space? They don't look much. They're not bigger than Brian. So what does space mean, taking up a lot of space? Maybe space means taking a lot of the teacher's energy. Maybe it's taking up a lot of the time in class. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first. Then the best friends of the best players. Then the friends of the best friends. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. Quincy is outside the door trying to get in. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. Huh. Does that remind us of Nerdy Birdie from yesterday? Does it remind us of the girl in Your Name is a Song from last week? In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, said JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, adds Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, said Madison. Everybody did except Brian. He wasn't invited. At choosing time, while the other kids play board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do best. He draws fire-breathing dragons scaling tall buildings, space aliens locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. Based on what I saw last week in Seesaw, I know some kiddos who could draw this really well. And I know some people told me they were as brave as superheroes. Some told me they were brave as dragons. I remember. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him, Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. "What's that?" asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. "It's bulgogi." "Bul what?" "Bulgogi. It's Korean barbecued beef. My grandma made it for me. It's really good. Do you want to try some?" "There's no way I'd eat boogergi." And the kids laugh. All of them, that is, except Brian. He sits there wondering which is worse, being laughed at or feeling invisible. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. "Justin, I thought the bulgogi looked good. Brian." At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. "You're Brian, right?" "Yeah. Thanks for the note." "Hey, Justin," Emilio calls out from the tetherball court. "You're up next." "Sorry, I gotta go," said Justin. "By the way, that's a really cool drawing," he adds before taking off. Starting to notice something. Look at Brian. He's a little bit more colorful than he was. I'll show you. Here. And now here. There's a little bit more color to him. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in twos or threes for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads towards Justin. "I'm already with Justin," says Emilio. "Find someone else." What color is Brian now? Could that be because he feels invisible again? Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. "Mrs. Carlotti said we can have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio. Let him work with us." "Okay, I guess." Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photograph. Use your imagination and have fun. "Whoa, cool," says Emilio. "What kind of people do you think would live in houses like that?" "I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story," says Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. It's Hannah outside. Here they are working together. And here they are presenting. The crooked story we made up on the spot. It's lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day. Another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. "Brian!" he hears someone shout. "Hey, Brian, over here!" Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. "Cookie? Thanks." maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. So we've had a great, almost 1.5, 2 weeks of books. And my hope is that you see being open to making new friends, being welcoming, being proud of who you are and what makes you different and what makes us alike, and seeing others, even some kids who might not be your best friend, seeing them, understanding them, and celebrating them. Hope you enjoyed these books this week. Hope you enjoyed the little assignments that went with them. If you do all 5, you're well on your way to some nice swag at the end of the year. Take care.